Welcome back, everybody, to a new short series from the Point After Podcast. Today, I'm going to be previewing the Alabama-Georgia game that's set to take place on Saturday. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a podcast this week. I am about to drop down to Birmingham, get on a flight, and travel to Missouri until late Friday afternoon. So me and Matthew, our schedules haven't worked out to where we could sit down and record one podcast, much less two. So I decided I want to get this video out before I get going. But yeah, so Alabama, number 2 in the nation, number 3 in the nation. Georgia set to square off on Saturday. A lot of people, I think a lot of CBS analysts picked Georgia to win this game like 3 out of 4. You can make a good case for Georgia to win. I definitely think it's going to be a close game somewhere, probably a 7-point ball game, one score, less than one score. Not sure what the spread is, but I'll say if it's anywhere around 7, 6, maybe, probably I'll take the under. Or take whoever it is to cover. I don't know who's favorite. But excuse me real quick. So, Georgia defense. The biggest thing here is Alabama's offense versus Georgia's rush defense. And on top of that, Alabama's defense played piss poor against Ole Miss. Can they bounce back this week? I think they will. I think last week was just straight Lane Kiffin out-schemed them to death. Lane Kiffin had probably been preparing for that game since summer, since he took the job. Lane Kiffin is an offensive genius. Like, don't forget that he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama just a few years ago. So it's not like he don't know what he's doing. I think Saban hinted at stealing signals. I think he was just kind of bullshitting, honestly. Dylan Moses seemed to be really into that, like they actually stole their signals, but there's no way. I mean, they probably had a really good idea on what Pete Golding was calling on offense, but as far as stealing signals, I don't think Ole Miss is going way too fast to know what they were doing. There was a lot of times where Alabama was lined up, or wasn't lined up, and hadn't even had the play called in. And then the first touchdown they scored was a formation that I'm pretty sure one of the Ole Miss coaches said that they had never even seen before. So none of that, but nonetheless, Najee Harris has 52 carries for 347 yards. Georgia's rush defense is allowing 38.3 yards per game against Auburn, against Tennessee, and Tennessee ran the ball all over South Carolina a couple weeks ago. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this game plays out. But when you look at stats compared side by side, Bennett versus Mack, Bennett has 84 attempts, like 600 something yards. Mack has 84 attempts, 1,100 yards with 10 plus more completions, and then like 8 touchdowns. Bennett has 3 or 4 or 5 maybe. Zamir White has 54 rushes. Najee has 52. Zamir has 209 yards, 4 touchdowns. Najee has 347 yards, 10 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle has 19 receptions. Jackson, sorry, I had to look at it. Didn't want to get his name wrong. Jackson has 19 for 300. Waddle has 19 for 396. Jackson has 1 touchdown. Waddle has 3 touchdowns. Points per game, Alabama 51, Georgia 36. Allowed points per game, Georgia's allowing 12. Alabama's allowing 30. Total yards, Alabama's up by 140. Yards allowed, Alabama is allowing 240 more yards per game. Do not get this confused. Do not. Ole Miss had a really, really good defense. Okay, Texas A&M just beat the number 4 team in the country. Don't get it confused. Missouri, most of their yards and points came in the second half when we had a couple second stringers in, and was more building towards experience at that point. The defense, the best it's looked all year, in my opinion, was against Missouri. They didn't look bad against Texas A&M, and then against Ole Miss, of course, they played awful. Georgia, on the other hand, they looked absolutely great against Auburn, like unbeatable against Auburn. Tennessee, little suspect, a little bit, but they still look dang good. Georgia, I have Florida as my dark horse to win the SEC East. If Georgia keeps playing like this, Georgia's probably going to win it. But then again, it comes down to Georgia versus Florida later on in the season. Whoever wins that head-to-head is probably going to win the East, which means the winner of that matchup will inevitably face Alabama in the SEC Championship should Alabama not blow it. While saying that, Texas A&M, in my opinion, is going to finish second in the West because Auburn doesn't look that great. You never know what kind of team you're going to get with Auburn. LSU's out. Mississippi State KJ Costello is not an air raid quarterback. He's just not. You can tell by the way he plays. He's not comfortable. Now, yes, the air raid's all about repetition, but Costello is not Mike Leach's quarterback. So, grand scheme of things, I've got Alabama taking this one 34-28, somewhere in there. Not high-scoring ball game like we saw last week with Alabama and Ole Miss, but kind of lower score than Georgia and Tennessee. I think they've scored around 60. I'll check that really quick. 44-21, so yeah, they scored 65 last week. A little lower than that, somewhere in there. It's going to be a really dang good game. It's going to come down to defense, turnovers. Mac Jones is not going to turn the ball over. We know that. He's had one turnover-worthy throw all year, and that was against Ole Miss on Saturday. Even the interception that he threw was not a turnover-worthy throw. So that's my prediction. Alabama 34, Georgia 28. We'll see how this goes. Like I said, no podcast this week. Unfortunately, we haven't had the time to sit down and record one. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys' support. Matthew, appreciate your guys' support. We have apparel now. We have Alabama t-shirt, a Jacksonville State Stay Cocky shirt. We have an Auburn shirt, available in sweatshirts, hoodies too. And then we have just like if you just want like a generic The Point After Podcast t-shirt, we have that as well. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, and have a wonderful week.